Welcome to Life Action Roleplay with
Cynthia Marie
and Kai
and Omega. Brought to you by, what drinks are we having today?
I am enjoying some of our guests' Apothic Red.
Mm-hmm. The red wine of goths.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm having a Pellegrino because I need to not be on wine.
Yeah.
While I'm moderating.
That's not true.
It is totally true. I totally
disagree.
You are free to disagree.
Refuse. Sin, what are you drinking?
Tea.
Yeah.
Hey, you're drinking tea too.
I am also drinking tea.
Don't leave me.
Yeah, but he's drinking real
alone.
tea because he's drinking black tea.
Okay,
You're drinking
my throat
like,
hurts. I'm
herbal
sorry.
Tea.
How's that again? What's it called?
What?
What's this called again?
Herbal tea.
It's cute.
We invented herbs.
You invented herbs?
Yes. We invented herbs.
The 14 herbs and spices of KFC.
Well, I mean, the British Empire, conquered every spice and herb around the planet and then decided to use none of it in its cooking.
Well, none of them were good enough.
That's true. Or we just like bland things.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, we should talk about...
Shoutouts.
Should we?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh.
You didn't think of that, did you?
I didn't
think.
Crap.
We're so prepared. We were so prepared
I have one.
for this story.
Okay.
Yes. To Jake, whose PC is Prince Gray. He and I have been going back and forth a lot with my character, both in character and out of character. He's been a really great mentor to help me be a better toyador. So thank you, Jake.
So for which game?
La Sangre.
Nice.
I forgot I'm in multiple games now.
My shout out is to my friend Christina Drake, who kind of threw her and a few of other people at Dystopia Rising this past weekend threw my character into something that I personally, as a role player, did not feel I was ready for. That didn't mean that I didn't consent to it. I was just my character is a self-confessed kind of cleric priest of a religion. And I've slowly been learning more about the philosophy behind that religion, which is very much like revering the lyrics of old rock music and then like finding modern uses for it. So it's more philosophy than actual religious, but it's really fun and you can really go down the rabbit hole. I've been reading a lot about conspiracy theories regarding Tool and Pussifer and like Maynard's work as musical, how he creates a whole bunch of crazy stuff. These players kind of approached me and was like, what does it mean to be King's Court? I want to learn more. And at the time, I couldn't even remember my tenets of the faith because I'm still preparing myself and like, writing notes in my little songbook and things. So I actually have all of these notes I can remember. But so I didn't have any of those, and I was like, and I didn't want to send people away and go, no, I don't want to. So I just kind of got thrown into the deep end, and I started talking about what it means to be my character's faith without handling the finer points of the tenets. And I kind of just went for it, and it ended up sucking a whole bunch of people in, and then one person was like, yeah, that was really helpful, and then other people heard about it and came, and it just kind of snowballed, and I'm like, oh god, what the hell is happening? So that was definitely a direction I wasn't expecting, and it was super fun. Sorry for that taking like 5 minutes, but yeah, that's my shout out.
All right, I'm going to include a few people in my shout out because I do a lot.
Ugh,
oh my god.
You're taking so long.
All right.
So inconsiderate.
All right, I know. I am
just
so
wrap it
rude.
up.
I am
Says the
rude.
guy who took 5 minutes to do his.
Exactly. That's why I was saying.
So, shout out to Mike Delaney, who included me in his streaming playtest. He was so excited to have me there. I'm playing a sorcerer wild mage.
What game?
I don't even know what the name of the game is. We just kind of play test and it happens to be on stream.
I really almost thought you said Slew, and I almost got really excited about that.
Mike Looney's a good person. I know him. He's he's a good role player, and he's a good storyteller.
Yeah. Shout out definitely to Rudy and Satine. We just concluded Fury's Fate yesterday. It was the season finale. And
Well, yesterday when we're recording this,
Yes.
listeners, you're probably going to be about 3 weeks in the future,
yes,
at least.
I know.
Hello
but
from the past.
hello from the
Yay.
past. Reminder to buy some milk in the future.
Maybe it's like 2 because we don't release this until
February 14th.
yeah.
Yeah.
February 14th is when this comes out.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or Happy Single Awareness Day if you don't have another person.
I'm already aware I'm a single, so
Okay.
I don't need a holiday to celebrate that.
Dodger, eat all the chocolate.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, so shout out to them for just having me on that show. So I'm incredibly grateful, and to a previous guest, Jason Carl. He knows what he did, and it's a surprise for everybody. But I'm so excited to be working with him on something. That's it.
Oh, I know what that is.
You know what it is,
Yep.
but I'm still gonna tease everybody with this.
Rude.
So rude. All right, and also with us.
How am I the
Yep.
one person talks to him every day and I don't know?
Well, maybe you should go ask him. Now,
Yeah.
we should talk about our special guest, however.
Yes.
Yes.
But before we talk about our special guest,
Oh.
we should introduce the person who's handling the audio for us tonight.
We should.
That would be James from Ancient Archives Apparel. Hey, James.
Hey, how's it going?
Going excellent.
I bet you want to know what's new today. Huh?
Yes. What is new with you? And what are you speaking into? What is that?
Oh, there are so many comments that could be
called
said
a
about this.
microphone.
I want to know what your opinion is.
It.
But is it LARP safe? That's the question.
Let's just say I'm not going to get pregnant off of this thing.
Okay.
Dum.
And dun dun. And of
Mic
course, I'm taking the
drop.
picture right now. So when we actually put this podcast up, we will have context and
If,
probably appropriate for Valentine's Day and Singles Awareness Day, probably.
Yeah, I think it's very appropriate. So if you really want to know, you can just ask, and then I'll comment back to it. We'll leave it a mystery until then. So Ancient Archives Apparel. So there's so many things going on. My head's going to explode. But the big thing right now is I am creating the first ever LARP retail store in an application form that will be available very soon on the iOS and Android platforms. Very big news, and it's the very first LARP store in history. So none of the other big retailers, none of the big dogs are doing it. So I will be the very first. I'm very proud of that.
Cool.
Awesome. And we will put that in our iPhones or our Androids.
Absolutely. And just so everyone knows, everyone's taking pictures of me with this hideous device.
Hilarious device.
Yeah.
He's got a microphone that happens to be kind of wrapped in what looks like, we're going to call it a cozy, a knitted cozy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you looking at me because you want to use it?
I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
We're trying to debate if we just call this out or just.
I'm going to leave it a mystery. So whoever wants to know can comment and actually engage with us.
And caption it. They should totally caption this.
Yeah, I think Cynthia
The mystery.
Cynthia just captured a good photo, so you can caption that photo.
Caption that photo.
All the photos. It looks like you're about to eat it.
Oh,
Well,
hint, wink, wink.
wink, wink.
AncientArchivesApparel.com.
Smooth.
I don't know if people will get that through the podcast, but
I hope they do.
I hope they do.
If not, you can always snip it out and make a soundbite of it later.
All right. Now, we should definitely talk about our guest. Because
Yes.
we've got a lot of cool things to talk about, and we do have limited time.
Yes.
We can leave him out. It's totally fine. We're okay.
Rude.
All right. I know they've been patiently waiting. So, Poisal, I know you've been on this podcast before, but can you remind everybody else who you are?
Hi, I'm Poisal. I'm a former head storyteller, off again storyteller and narrator of La Sangre de Los Angeles, a One Roll by Night, Camera Anarch vampire game out here in LA, and quite involved in the One World scene out here and around the country. So,
And for today's topic,
Vampires are sexy, right?
yeah, vampires
Yeah.
are.
That's like a good February theme.
So the topic for today is how to roleplay an in-character relationship.
Bum, bum, bum.
Ba, ba, ba.
And all of the particulars there above.
I think the soundbite for that is Bounchiga, but
Do you want to do that one?
No, no.
That's why I chose not to do that.
Like, come on, we're rated everything, or we're rated explicit technically, and we haven't gone there.
Really?
Oh yeah.
yeah, of
That's
course.
why
I
there's a-
cursed in the last one. I thought I couldn't, but then I was told that I could. And
Well, shit.
yeah,
That's why there's a little E next to our podcast for iTunes, and so I don't have to worry about editing you whenever anyone swears.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're not.
no, you're not.
No, you're not. Since you, putting you on the spot here, since you wanted this topic more than anything, but it's also appropriately thematic, let's talk about where you wanted to take this. I think it was the reason why Poisal is here.
Yes. Why are you? No, just kidding. So I've had a couple of conversations throughout the couple of weeks, and more specifically from Luana over in Brazil. She asked me about my experience with romance in character with my PCs, and I'm just going to read what she had to say. Do you experience a lot with romance with other PCs? How do you usually deal with that? She sees a lot of people who are a little bit afraid of potential bleed with their feelings and all that jazz. So I thought it'd be a fun topic to talk about on Valentine's Day, considering the circumstances. So Poisal here, as you guys probably heard me talk about often, about Lola and her weird relationship with this damn Setite. Well, this darn Setite sitting across from us now. So
Hi, I'm that evil, nasty rockstar Setite. So I play a Setite in the One World vampire named Sid Slither. You can laugh all you want about the name, but it works. It works, I tell you.
You don't know what Harry Potter house he's from?
Oh, yeah, he's a Ravenclaw. But yeah, it was. We have had a weird dynamic in-character relationship between Lola, the dancer, and Sid, the rock star, and it has caused so much drama and so much fun roleplay and storytelling aspects and all of that. So
much drama that he doesn't really get to be. He used to like stir the pot and then leave. Anyhow, so I just thought it would be fun to talk about since there's been some buzz about romance in PC world. So I posed a question to you guys. Have you guys ever experienced romance with your PCs at all? And it could be familial romance too, I guess. Familial love, right?
Yeah. So how I'm interested in this topic is just thinking about the way we create our characters, the way we pose our characters, the aspects of them, because our characters are not just numbers on the paper, not just what they can and can't do. Our characters are the relationships that they have. And there are a lot of relationships that our LARP characters go through, and some of them we are much more comfortable with, the things that we experience more in our lives, our familiar relationships between mother and daughter, father, son, etc. We also have our friendships, the companionship and compatriots that we make along the way in our adventures. But something that's a little bit more taboo in LARP and in role-playing is something that is still a very important part of our human experience, is the kind of romantic relationships that we have, because those are also important parts of our human experiences, and something that we can, if successful, bring really well to LARP to help enhance the experience, enhance the stories that we tell.
But it's like a lot of people kind of view those things as almost like taboo because they're so intense, they're so intimate that some people actually do shy away from role play that leaves them in a potentially vulnerable position like that.
Well, I have my own thoughts on that and why it is taboo. Because I think it is also taboo. We have these views on relationships as a whole, not just role playing them, but in real life, where there's this idea that we save certain parts of ourselves, certain parts of our emotionality, and the things that we share with each other. These romantic aspects solely for one person, and so the idea to many people of role playing that, of having that sort of relationship in a game, takes away from the relationships that we have in real life, and I disagree with that. But I can see where the stigma and the feelings for a lot of people come from.
Looking at the questions that are being asked of us when we mentioned that we were going to do this type of a podcast, 90% of them, of the questions, are all about bleed and consent. And I remember remarking earlier that it's interesting because when we think about role-playing romances, we talk about how wonderful it is to be in love and what a great role-play experience that is to experience. However, a lot of these questions are making sure that you don't get hurt.
Yeah.
And it's coming from a super defensive place, which, you know, admittedly, I didn't expect that this is where we're going to go at all. But again, 90% of our questions are trying to make sure that we don't get hurt.
I feel like something that you were saying, Poisal, actually made me think. It kind of almost kind of was an approaching a philosophy, kind of like how people interpret the world almost. There's a little meme that I've seen bouncing around that I thought was kind of cute. Love is not a pie, as in P-I-E. Hand out your 8 slices and then you are done. Love is like pie, as in P-I. Irrational and never-ending. And apart from the fact that it's kind of adorable, especially appropriate for Valentine's Day kind of things, it also can be taken to some degree with LARP, because you know, like playing a game where you're using these high emotions and these highs and lows and you know, kind of harnessing them. Again, I think I might kind of throw to the pot that I think some people view it that if you're playing with that emotion, then you're worried you might be like using it up or sullying it or something like that. Even if that isn't something that people actively think about, they might be kind of like what's the right word for it? Subliminal. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry. Yeah, like some people kind of don't really realize on it or not. You know?
I wanted to take this back to Sin and Poisal about how did you two decide to be in a relationship?
Okay, from my point of it, I was the head storyteller when Cynthia started coming to La Sangre. And so I was talking to her a lot about her character and the types of stories that she wanted out of LARP and what she was looking for. And something that we kept coming back to was the romanticism of vampire, the kind of interview with Lestat, like the prince, the romanticism of like Anne Rice and those sort of vampire stories, which all have to deal with a lot of like really heavy emotions and really like tragic romances. And so I knew that this is what Cynthia was looking for. And then, after she had come into the game for a while, I was getting burned out on storytelling, and someone else wanted to step up as head storyteller, so I took a break away from it and started coming up with my new character. And I wasn't actually intending it when we came in, but our characters had a good chemistry upon first meeting, and after that first meeting, we talked about the kind of stories that Cynthia wanted to tell, the kind of stories I wanted to tell, and realized that our characters worked well together for that kind of role play and for that kind of story. And so it has been a very romantic and very tragic and very Sid and Nancy, Romeo and Juliet,
Bonnie and Clyde,
tragic kind of romance, which I think is a very important part of vampire genre and a very important part of roleplay, of something for people to see and people can empathize with and people can be on one side of the fence or the other about. And it's caused a lot of drama and a lot of storytelling, but has been ultimately very fruitful.
It initially started off as very manipulative back and forth. Like I know my intent was to use his character as much as possible and try to get him to do certain things. And I think it was the other way around as well, was manipulating. And then when we started figuring out that it actually worked better as these two romantic characters, like a Bonnie and Clyde sort of situation, manipulating everybody else around us, it became a better storyline.
Play a player, and suddenly these two players are falling for each other, kind of style.
Kind of, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's
It
fun.
was good. It was it evolved kind of naturally through roleplay and through just the storylines that were happening, and then through active, like, out of character conversation between us about what we wanted from this.
yeah. It was fun because a lot of the characters that I interacted with, a lot of them were like, "Oh, don't go near him, don't go." And every time they would say that, it was like the daughter being like, "Yeah, sure, I'm going to still go with that guy. Like, you keep telling me no, I'm going to keep doing the
Oh
bad."
yeah, I was totally the bad boyfriend.
Yeah,
Like,
it was tough. And then sadly got ripped away like that. Like it didn't
well,
even
yeah,
have time to process
other
there.
PCs finally had enough of it, and
Yeah.
and while the relationship is on the rocks right now, through PC involvement, it is still generating untold stories and a lot of really good role play. Hence, Cynthia's shout out to Jake, the player of Prince Grey of Santa
Yeah,
Rosa.
still dealing with our aftermath.
So, do we want to move on to another question? Or you guys want to talk about what kind of relationships have you had in roleplay, in character?
So for me, it's not quite LARP. However, Labyrinth of Jareth is pretty much LARP light. I know, like, I see Sin kind of looking at me.
I mean, it's an informal LARP. It's as much of a LARP as other people want to make it.
I know why you're...
It is. Labyrinth of Jareth is interactive theater.
Yes.
And it involves the input of the audience in some ways in generating the story and the movement of such, and so it involves the improvisation and reactions of the people involved. And so, like, I would consider Labyrinth of Jareth a LARP light for the actors involved.
As told by me, it is an immersive theater experience.
Yes.
It's
but-
just a fancy word for LARP.
For listeners, for those unaware, Labyrinth of Jareth is a LA-based, once-a-year annual kind of masquerade ball. If you've ever seen the David Bowie movie Labyrinth,
It's nothing like that.
it was originally based on that ballroom scene and has since kind of evolved and become its own thing and has concurrent storylines and things like that. So it's if you're in LA, it's a lovely thing to do. But a lot of us have worked on it, and there is a lot of improvised acting and theater that goes into it. So it's a really good reference point that we like to bring up from time to time.
And for me, having been like the producer for a few years, more than a few years, on the production, I was also one of the writers. And so if there was an element that made Labyrinth of Jareth more LARP-like, it was considered my fault. And part of it was because around 2012, I created something called the Post Office over there because I wanted to have more interaction, because the problem that I saw as a producer was that I would see performers performing around each other but not engaging their patrons. And so I tried to come up with a game design that made people opt into that world if they wanted more story. And so I created the Post Office. So for me, the in-character romance that I've experienced actually came from someone else, not me, but he suggested it to me. So my friend Dash had come up to me and said that it made sense for his character, Sir Dash, which I realized that this is not very original, but a lot of the characters are usually based off of their own names if they haven't been assigned a name. And my character, the Viscount, would more or less be in a relationship. So the way we figured that out was that we talked the whole thing out in terms of why would it make sense. For him, he's very, very heady. So is the Viscount. And when it came to taking all of that information and putting it on a stage scene and how it would affect that, our friend and director, John Ross, wanted to insert a piece of the relationship between Sir Dash and the Viscount onto that stage by ending it with a big kiss between the both of us, which was huge because it was the first time a gay scene was on stage on Labyrinth. And the way we worked it out was John Ross wanted to see if I was okay with this, and so did Dash. And I said, well, yes, but there are two stipulations. Number one is we have to have a in-character reason why we kiss. The other thing is that kiss has to be real because the audience will know if it is fake. They will absolutely call us out on it. And so it actually required 2 hours of us being in his dojo just trying to figure out why are we in love with each other. But by the time we came to that ending, that conclusion, it made sense why we were in love, and we totally role-played with that. And the very key thing about this is that Dash is straight, and I'm gay. So there had to be very clear boundaries on how do we role-play and how do we perform this. So for us, making out on stage, we knew that was a thing that had to be done. So how do we do it in order to make that sincere? And a lot of it was coming up with the storyline and making sure that all the rules of consent were in play. And also on a deep understanding that we were good friends and that we trusted each other to know that this was an in-character relationship, and that if he's with a female, I don't suddenly get jealous because I already knew he was straight in the first place. So there was no heartbreak to be had. And even afterwards, even after performance, we met together a few days after to just check in with each other because we were still friends. And that's, I guess, my version of an in-character romance, because I've never actually had that in LARP.
That sounds very healthy. I'm actually realizing almost all of my characters, so I have a few different characters. One who, and these are not things that I kind of pre-planned, they just kind of naturally flowed of like when someone asked, are you into that? My character would either be like, yes, no, maybe, what the hell is that kind of thing. I have one character that is very strictly asexual. He's a cannibal. He doesn't, and he's very animalistic. He's literally like a pack hunting creature. So that little Lascarian creature in Dystopia Rising has zero sexuality. It's all primal, and it's all just like growling and snarling at things, running around and eating dead bodies. It's all id. And so I've not found any way that he's actually felt kind of connected to someone, because like law of nature, if something goes away, he just kind of goes, well, I'll eat it and then I'll move on. Which isn't terribly romantic. I have another character that is kind of like bi, poly, just all the way. He's like, yeah, everything's fun. And then I have like this noble in a different game where there are... I haven't really thought too heavily, or he hasn't thought too heavily on people that he would be romantically involved in or not. Because he's the youngest son in a noble house, and he's been so used to the barest of responsibilities that he's been given, and the understanding that he's going to get married off for some political position. So he's very flirtatious with people, but he has no interest in relationships, unless his mother who is actually in game, were to basically be like, this is your arranged marriage. With that said, earlier Poisal was saying about like inter-family kind of relationship aspects. I realized that my character has a very strong romance with his mother. Just because they are very close. They rely on each other in-game. They interact often in-game. So shout out to my friend Corey who does that.
Yay, Corey. She's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of something that I didn't even really think about or anticipate when we came into talking about this. I was not prepared to talk about my character's mother. because I didn't really see that as a thing. But the same rules, now that I think about it, kind of really apply.
Oh, yeah.
You should always plan things ahead of time. I've had a few friends kind of express to me that they felt very uncomfortable when certain kind of like in character like kind of moves on their character have been kind of like blurring the line, and it ended up being kind of clear that someone was interested in them in an out of character way and was using in character as an excuse to kind of interact with them in that manner, which is, in my opinion, that kind of takes away the fun from another person. And it very dangerously leads into making things just a little bit too real in the wrong ways.
Yeah, that just makes me think of the common like idea of is this person talking to me? Is this person being my friend because they want to sleep with me, or because they're actually interested in me as a person? And so that gets compounded even more when you're interacting not as yourself but as another character. And so there's even that further level of blur and like indistinction between like, are they trying to role play with me? Are they actually interested in me? Are they trying to be friendly? Like it becomes, without clear and like constant communication of like what is actually happening here, can become very confusing and very disjointing for people that don't realize that and don't and have that confusion there because it's not being made clear, because somebody is acting in a way that is disingenuous.
Yeah, it kind of becomes almost a way I'd hazard to use the word predatory, maybe, to a degree. And LARP should always be a safe environment where people are playing to have fun. I don't think, while I've actually encountered a lot of friends who have found partners in LARP, because it's a common nerdy thing, and like having a LARP partner is like super cute. Like being able to share that with a partner, or just have them running around in the game and consenting to things is all of it is important. But using it as like kind of an icebreaker is not necessarily a good thing, because like there are lots of people of every gender that or no gender that feel that when someone starts hitting on them in real life, it's very easy to feel like the person who is hitting on you, if they're rejected, things could go poorly. Yeah. And likewise, you're playing this game, so if someone's kind of like putting that across at you, and it's not something that you actually consent to, again, you can kind of feel pressured into something that you don't necessarily want, because you don't know how this person is going to react. Yeah. Even more compounded if you misread the situation, and it's like, oh, this is a storyteller or someone in a position of power, their character is hitting on me, am I going to get banned from the game? Yeah. Like, there's a lot of layers and a lot of potential other threats that could be potentially leveled. So it kind of becomes a little darker if people don't talk about it ahead of time, and you don't find like, if you're going to do something like this, you should be able to trust and communicate with the person ahead of time. At least that's my opinion.
There's also something to be said that for people who may be new to LARP, that you meet somebody, you two just hit it off, and for one reason or another, you're more attracted to them as a character than you are to them as a person, which does happen. And it's one of those scenarios where, like, I find this person interesting, and you find that you're talking about game 80% of the time, more so than wanting to hang out with that person in any other form or function other than game. And that's kind of your clue on where your fascination lies. And I know that with a lot of people who are new to LARP, sometimes getting them into LARP is already difficult, because they're already concerned about, can I do I know how to role play with people socially? And that's already a major hurdle, like just getting into their first LARP. It's like, will I be able to interact with people?
So, I mean,
Kinda stay in character.
Well, I'll bring up back to the familial thing. So my sister, being completely and utterly brand new, her first relationship was me as her sister. So we went in with the commonality of, I've got your back, you've got mine, because we're sisters, and like regardless of what clan we're in, regardless of what she believes in, what I believe in, like our love right there is always going to like conquer everything. So I think she felt safer knowing that I was there, and vice versa. So we were able to actually go into La Sangre with a little bit more of a safer and open mind, knowing that we had that connection. So
I guess like my concern is that I know with a lot of us, like we are lucky enough to come in with a few friends, and usually LARP is introduced by a friend of yours because it is so intimate. But there are some people who are thrown into a LARP and don't know how to. I don't want to say they don't know how to socially respond to a romance, so they think to automatically go into it because it's what they would do as a person.
yeah.
So I guess how would we address people who are finding themselves in the middle of a romance once they're in it, rather than having the opportunity to talk about that and plan it?
Well, what kind of time frame are we talking about?
Yeah.
Like, your average LARP is a day LARP or like a 4 or 5 hour session kind of LARP with more of a parlor background. So that there's only so far a relationship can necessarily go.
And are
in
you
that
talking
time.
about more of a flirtatious thing that you find yourself in? Because like I'll give you an example for me. My first LARP in my entire life. I was in Vegas. I was doing a La Sombra, so I was wearing a long black gown, long dark black hair, makeup on point as usual. And I'm walking around. All the slinky and all the murky. Walking around, this guy literally grabs me and tries to throw chops at me and says, what did he say? What power did he try? He tried to use some sort of seduction power, and I forgive me because I was completely. Yeah, it was an entrancement. We'll go with that for right now.
Dominate?
I think it might have been dominate. I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you what happened. The reason why I don't remember this is because he asked me to kiss him. And he threw chops at me, and I was like, "Excuse me, what?" He's like, "Rock paper scissors," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I threw. Thank God I was amazing at it, like 6 different times. 6 different. He tried to use all of his. At that point, I was thank God I knew the storytellers, and Jimmy had been walking by, and I was like, "What's the hand signal for help, please?" And he literally just yanked me and grabbed me from there. So, are you again talking about a flirtation moment like that where something were to happen, or are you talking about something more like long span?
Well, I guess. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing that up because that's important.
Yeah, that was a shitty moment, to be honest with you.
Are you okay talking about that a bit more?
Sure, absolutely.
So, I mean, I feel like that touches very strongly on, and I didn't even know that story, but I feel like that really touches on what I was kind of saying about, like, game starts feeling a lot less like a game. And for me, at least, I always feel that it is a game first. I'm going to rephrase that. It is a game. And it is just a game, and people are more important than the game always. Which means if someone is not okay with how a situation is going down, they opt the fuck out. Like they go, you know what? I'm not comfortable with this. They can step away. If that means repercussions to the character, cool, whatever. But they themselves are like, you know what? If I'm getting dominated and I have to kiss this person, I don't have to fizz rep that. It's like, okay, cool. You won your challenge. We kiss.
So, but as a new player, how do you understand the difference between I'm allowed to opt out of this and, oh my God, I'm by myself. This person's asking me to do this, and I don't know. So I'm going to throw chops and pray to God that I got this right and get out of the situation. Like at that point, I was literally on my way to the bathroom, so I had no one around me at that point, and he grabbed me, asked me, and I was like, okay. Like I said, thank God I was amazing at throwing chops at that point.
Mind if I chime in here? I'm kind of just curious about the situation.
Absolutely.
So coming from a non-experienced player, what would happen if you lose? Like, what would be the proper way to actually back out of that situation?
me personally, how I would handle it, or
Yeah,
like
just
my
anyone in
professional
general,
business.
Just like anyone in general. Like
So-
if anyone is in
Kind
that
of the problem.
situation.
So here's
no
the
one's
thing.
really not gonna. No one's gonna know as a first-time player.
Right. I'm a very strong and intimidating woman walking around, period. So I was actually really surprised that he even had the balls enough to come up to me and try to do that. But if I had lost, I probably would have laughed and been like, "Oh, sweetie, you have no idea," and like probably try to pull something else or just completely walk away and go to the bathroom. In which case, he probably would have grabbed the storyteller and be like, "Oh, she didn't do the blah 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 thing."
At
In
which
which
point-
case, all the storytellers were all my friends who would have been like, "You asked her to do what?"
Yeah.
No.
It's
Bye.
A good Schadenfreude moment back there would have been like some kind of return of like, Dominic, go to kiss the toilet.
Yeah.
Go fizz rep that.
Yeah, but again, as a new player, I was still learning all of
Yeah.
the powers. I had no idea. I didn't even know how to read my character sheet at that point. So he took advantage of the situation of knowing that I was a completely new
Clearly.
character. So after that, I, needless to say, had a storyteller following me the entire night.
in my experience as a storyteller, you can't always be present for every scene. You can't always you put a level of trust in your players to be able to act professionally and act in a decent manner to respect the new players that are coming in that may not understand the level of the system that you're working with or all of the rules or anything like that, but also just to behave as good human beings. But something I always tell new players coming in as well is if there is anything that is confusing to you, that you have questions about, or anything that you're uncomfortable about, you always come to a storyteller, always ask for education of a scene, or we can answer any questions that you have. And especially in like the first night, like throwing chops, like you shouldn't be doing that without a storyteller present, because that's people may not realize it, but they like a lot of people will just like default like take advantage of players and their naivete to gain political favor, to gain a one-upsmanship kind of thing. And so it's something we've tried to address very strongly in La Sangre, at least, of one, being very like candid and very helpful to new players, but also working in setting up a kind of mentoring system in a way of trying to get new players attached to experienced players that are responsible, so that the experienced player can help kind of guide them and show them how to handle dealing with conflict in the game and the chops and all of that.
That sounds super healthy. Like having an escort kind of thing. Like that's awesome. Like mentor.
So my thoughts are, when it comes to romance roleplay should always be opt-in by all of its players. Romance roleplay that requires opt-out is not consent.
Yeah.
That's like a huge thing. So what I would recommend to people is, there is another concept in LARP which hasn't been brought up a lot but is appropriate to this topic, which is called Fade to Black.
I was going to say something about that.
Yeah, Fade to Black. Basically, when it comes to a intimate scene, whether it's kissing, whether it's like full out sex, instead of having to role play it, you just say, and we fade to black, because it's implied that you are doing that thing without having to role play it out. When it comes to kissing, same thing, the same idea. It's like, okay, so we kiss. That's it. You just narrate the scene, because technically what you are doing is, when you are role-playing a scene together, you are narrating a scene together. It should not require you to physically carry out something that you physically do not want to do.
So I'm laughing and smiling about a scene that I had to do in high school. I was in a high school musical. I went to an arts high school, and I did South Pacific, which is based on World War II. If anyone doesn't know South Pacific, it's basically vet guy or army guys in South Pacific, and one of the Lieutenant Cable, finds himself on an island, finds a island girl, Liat, who he falls in love with. Hi, I played Liat in high school. So, high school, Cynthia didn't have her first kiss ever, didn't know what to do with a boy at all. At that point, I was in my senior year of high school, and I had to play this scene where they fall in love, completely make out, and while he's singing and belting like the highest note in my face, I had to learn how to unbutton his shirt. And I remember the first day going into rehearsal or leading up to it, because we only met every Fridays for 4 hours or whatever. So as we're going through the script, we're getting closer and closer to my scene, and I'm freaking out. And I finally told my director, and I was like, I don't know what I can do. I don't know how to do this. He's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I've never kissed a boy before. And so as soon as we got to that moment where that was supposed to happen, and mind you, everybody who's in rehearsal, everyone's sitting around the room talking their lines or just watching what's going on in rehearsal. So I did my solo. I slide onto my knees and I go to like grab his shirt, and my director goes, all right, everyone, cut. Everyone's going to lunch except for you two. Nobody's back in here until we tell you to. And he took an hour and a half to get me comfortable with my co-star, with kissing him, because my co-star also had a girlfriend at the time who happened to be my friend. Yay! Nice. I got to kiss my friend's boyfriend on stage. So it took about an hour and 45 minutes for us to like get comfortable and understanding how to unbutton opposite of the way that I'm used to buttoning.
Oh, right, because girls' shirts button on the other side to guys' shirts.
Yes. And so...
And they're also facing, like...
Yeah, facing the opposite direction. Plus, add on the fact that I had just finished dancing, so my hands are like this, like shaking, and like, how do I do this? And he's singing at the top of his lung, Younger Than Springtime, if anybody knows, the very last note is like super duper heady high, and I was like, oh God, I have to do this, and at the very end, push him down and lay on top of him and fade to black. So when you said fade to black, I was like, yeah, that could have faded a lot sooner in life. So there you have it. Yeah, fade to black.
I think like discussing, because there's romance, there's flirtation. Then you start having kind of the romance of like a little bit of courtship. And then you have like an actual relationship, and these are different tiers of role plays that you can potentially engage in. If your character is a massive flirt but never wants to follow through, that is a thing that can potentially happen with you and other people. And that is a lot more of a kind of friendly environment for people, where you can just kind of pay them some compliments, give them a wink, and then walk away. Rather than like actually directly engaging people and potentially making them more or less comfortable or uncomfortable. I think talking about full-blown relationship and like the idea of like the possible ways that people can role play or fade to black for intimacies that they're not comfortable with is a really good topic. But I'd like to hit that after I hit something a little before that, if I may.
Sure.
What I'd like to kind of cover first is a very important thing with defining boundaries. And we've kind of like danced around it a little bit, but I feel like some rock solid rules that everyone can run by is always important. And it's not us making the rules for you listeners. It's you as a role player talking to your friend, hopefully, and then defining the rules with them. Maybe they have a partner. Maybe you have a partner. Both of your partners need to know what's going on if you have partners. And they need to be okay with every step that you and your roleplay buddy are actually comfortable with. I've known some relationships that they're like, sure, you can go kiss people while you're role-playing. That doesn't... I don't mind about that. Just like some people are actors and actresses, and if they've got a piece and they've got to make out with someone on stage or on screen, like that's to them the same as roleplay. Like you know, so long as it's handled professionally and fairly. But everything should be a very strong aspect of talk about everything ahead of time. Some role players might kind of scoff at that, but I feel like communication and trust and responsibility are the key aspects for an in-character relationship. but out of character trust, communication, and responsibility. I have a little bit more to add, but what do you guys think about that so far? Like, do you have any comments or anything like that, or like?
You're right on point with that.
There are, I was thinking about, there are ways in which we as players can show being in character relationship without actually like pushing a lot of like physical or emotional boundaries of just like, if you have that conversation with the other player beforehand, being like, our character's in a relationship, yes, and like, this is the current tier of our relationship, and then at game it can all be, oh, I'm just on their arm, or we just like, we are always in a proximity around each other, or if we haven't heard it from each other in a while, we go check on each other, like showing that level of like thought about the other player and other character. And then if other players ask about it, that's when you can talk in character about the things that happen off screen as an allusion to it, but never actually do it on screen. You can always allude to the man behind the curtain. And
could you give an example of that? Just as a random like.
Okay, a couple of years ago, I was playing my Nosferatu named Matchstick, and he had this on again, off again, like flirtation with this Malkavian up in San Francisco, and something happened during the night for her character of her being relieved of the pressure of some of her derangements. And because of this, and through a conversation involving other characters, her and my PC decided to have a scene that faded to black. And that was towards the end of the night. But I had something else that happened as that same character later that evening. And so our scene faded to black, but then going into the next scene, I just like disheveled my shirt and like messed up my hair and like did some things to show like through physical action and through role play that things were different, and kind of like hints at what is happening and shows that there is something happening there without being explicit, without like actually having to do that thing.
I like that. That's super cool. And it also makes it a lot more kind of like, if people are in a committed relationship or they have their own personal boundaries that they do not want to cross, just because you are in a relationship doesn't mean that people that are out of relationship are fair game. That's a very important distinction to make. Everyone should have full autonomy at all points in time, regardless of their preferences, regardless of anything. Actually, Ryan, haven't you had a situation where people have not been respectful of your positions with attraction and not?
Yeah, very early.
If you're comfortable sharing that.
Oh, yeah, thank you for asking. Very early on in LARP, for me, when I say very early on, like early 2000s, before the discussion of consent became as widespread as it was, when I wasn't like super out, but if people did ask, I did mention that. And my first role play into LARP was me learning to be social because I was fairly introverted and didn't have like a lot of confidence in myself. But I could play a character, and that character got to be as fabulous as he wanted to be. But for me, I was with some players, I guess in this case, like some women who knew that I was gay and therefore thought that if they groped me, if they pitched me on the ass, if they put my hands on their boobs, that it was completely okay because you're gay and therefore it doesn't affect you.
Did they ask you for permission?
No, they just kind of did it. And they just kind of did it. And now with the hard part is that if they were close friends, first of all, we wouldn't be doing this at LARP.
Yeah.
And there would be some context to all of this. But there was actually a very strange point where, as a result, like even now, I still struggle a little bit of role playing with female relationships because of what has happened in the past.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, role playing with guys, because I'm far more explicit, and partly maybe because I'm out. Like, some guys are actually okay with role playing those relationships because they absolutely know that I will never cross that boundary. And even if I push things a little bit, they're very, very clear. And I'm also very clear. Hey, are you okay with this? Because I am the last person to want to make them uncomfortable, especially if they're willing to trust that kind of role play with me. Some of them do tend to push their own, we'll say, identity boundaries. And I try to, at least, if they're willing to do that, I at least want to be a safe space. At which point it's like, you want to experiment with this? That is fine. I will stop whenever anything uncomfortable happens. Some guys do. Some guys don't. And as a result, they figure out something about themselves which they haven't before. And luckily, we're still friends. And sometimes they say thank you for at least being there for me.
Cool.
So, and the important part is making sure the consent is always there.
Yes.
So, Poisal, Sin, do either of you have anything you'd like to chime in for that point? Because I've got something that I can really easily lead in from what Ryan just said, but if you guys have anything...
Well,
you'd
I mean,
like
the
to
only
say
thing that came to mind for me
specifically.
when you were saying that women groped you reminds me of... That's what you said, right? Yes.
Yeah. They have.
So it reminds me of when I dress up as Princess Jasmine and I get people taking pictures with me because I'm bare midriff. It actually really freaks me out when men will kind of scoop up behind me and like do like they rub kind of like the back to like grab onto me to take a picture, and I'm just like,
put their
whoa.
put their arm around your waist.
Yeah, and I would say at least only 2% of the people that I've ever taken pictures with, and I've dressed up as Princess Jasmine for years, so this is a very small number, have ever said, "Is it okay that I put my arm around you?" And at that point, I,
That doesn't
absolutely
surprise me
thank
in the
you so
slightest.
much. I appreciate you asking, but most of the guys, I like emphasize guys because girls like. I usually have little girls running up to me and giving me like, big hugs. Or women will come up to me and give me big hugs. Men, for some reason, go for that the bare skin, and I like sometimes have to be like, "Excuse me, can you not?" "Oh, but I want to show you a whole new world." Really?
Oh, God!
Wow, that's not classy.
So usually, as my princess
Bad lines and
response is your name Aladdin, and do you have a magic lamp? So I empathize. I totally understand with the whole like weird groping
Don't make me
scenario.
kick you in your magic lamp.
Yeah, and I know Kai, you dress as Spider-Man. That is kind of
Actually, I was kind of thinking about that. So I had a very small inkling of how it might, and I'm not saying how it does, but how it might feel to be a regular female con-goer at a convention. It was a couple of years ago. I was dressed up as Spider-Man. I had a full cowl. I had a skin-tight suit. I had the seam of the suit was going right up the butt, and I was wearing a dancer's belt, so I had a butt. I had booty going on, and in that costume, with the fact that people could not see my face, I was completely dehumanized. I was objectified. I had people grab my ass. I had people slap my ass. I had people grab my junk. I had people run their hands along my chest, or people would kind of come up and like do the same thing of that kind of like waist wrap around, and then they kind of like slide their hands up to my my pectoral and stuff like that. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And all of these people who did this were women. And I even had at one point in time one of them like basically put their fingers right up between my cheeks, to the point that I jumped and kind of like pulled some like, flailing cat kind of kung fu move where I'm like pointing my hands at them going, whoa, not okay, as I land on my feet, like, jump into there, flail, point at them as I'm landing, and like, that's not cool. And they're like, they totally brush it off as like, well, you're wearing the costume. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's that whole, but you were asking for it the way you were dressed. And That is that was super educational for me. It's also why, from that point on, I've maybe worn that costume once more. I've always had a friend with me, and if I ever start getting to that point where I start feeling kind of naked or exposed, because I'm wearing a dancer's belt, so I'm not like junk out, but I'm in a skin tight suit. I definitely feel like I'm exposed, and sometimes I just have to take my mask off and walk around with my mask off to remind people that I'm a person, because otherwise, even just passively, people will bump into me and push past me like I'm not really there because they can't see my face. And that was really eye-opening, but I know that I can't compare that in any way to the kind of bullshit that women have to deal with, because in addition to that kind of shit, Sin, I would hazard people are trying to get your phone number. People are like throwing pickup lines like crazy, and they're practically salivating over you.
I'll ride your magic carpet was probably the worst line I've gotten.
Oh,
Yeah. But it goes back to consent and communication and like whether you're cosplaying or LARPing or you're in some sort of environment that you don't know said person, ask them if it's okay to touch their shoulder or to touch their arm or to touch their hand or to touch their waist, or like, please just don't assume that that's your property and you can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Poisal.
I said, it just reminds me of back when I used to cosplay when I was younger.
As a general note, for those who are unaware, Poisal looks basically the indeterminate age of a vampire or David Bowie. So that is how that is.
Yeah. So one of my very first costumes, I got that a lot. I dressed as Vash the Stampede.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I love that
super
costume.
Cool. But yeah, please, sorry.
Yeah. So I was, and the thing was like, I was also at a very like, not quite. I was at a good age for it. I was the first time I wore that costume. I was on my 16th birthday at a convention.
Gotcha.
And so that involved a lot of people taking advantage of my kind of naivete within the scene, within the community, and just being like a attractive young male-bodied person who was just very excited to be there.
Yeah.
And
cameras can be kind of a hypnotic kind of like if someone has a camera pointed at you, they can suddenly claim a lot of it's
control
almost like they
of
have
the scene.
A degree of authority over you where you're like,
Don't get me started on cameras.
Yeah. So that sounds like an awful experience. I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but I think we're
we are drifting a little bit. So I'd like to try and bring this back around a little bit. We mentioned Ryan was talking about how when he's had interactions with some of his male friends, they've always kind of had like that button that they can press of like, okay, time out.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel is very, very important.
It is.
If you are having any kind of in-character relationship with someone that has any degree of romance to it, I would strongly encourage when you're defining boundaries with your friend that you guys provide an opt-out button. That means if things start getting weird or uncomfortable, you can go, nope, we're done. And you guys will respect it and work out a quick, very believable, low drama way of ending that relationship without like causing a scene, causing a fuss or anything like that. It just kind of wasn't, it wasn't working and you just fade it out and it's no longer a thing. Because otherwise it can be there if someone gets really attached to it and kind of starts pushing, but like, oh, just deal with it, like push it on a little bit. It starts getting weird.
And it can, from what I've seen in previous like stories that I've heard and things I've seen at games, it can really ruin the atmosphere of a game to have that kind of drama there that is almost purely out of character. The out of character drama that suffuses the like in character environment of like wanting to end this in character relationship but having issues with it on an outer character level. one of the things that I've seen instituted in some LARPs and that I'm a big fan of is during any sort of intense scene of a way to check in with other players is like very subtly making like an okay hand signal.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah,
it's
on,
such
like,
a good system.
like down at the side of your waist, like the stupid circle game, or like just kind of like on your shoulder or something, and then the other player can give the really subtle like thumbs up or thumbs down to be like, hey, I'm okay with this scene. The scene, like the intensity of the scene is still good. Like I'm okay dealing with this, or no, this is something I need to back out of, and we need to fade to black.
I've definitely had a moment, actually, like just barely a month ago, where a good friend of mine, James, and I we were in the middle of this the Dystopia Rising game, so that's like a full like weekend long LARP, like a good 36, 40 hours, and we're like maybe halfway through it, and I'm tearing his character a new asshole because he was a member of like the town government, and they voted in favor of allowing slavery to be a thing for a month, as kind of like part of the politics and deals going on and like all of that type of stuff. And out of character, that's a really interesting environment. In character, my character was super fucking pissed, and I was ripping into him hard, and every defense that he was kind of throwing out, I was like, you're being lied to, you're a fucking sheep, like you're an idiot, how are you not paying attention to this? And it's gathering a crowd, and like some people are being like, whoa, this is getting intense. Some people are walking away because it's too intense. Other people are kind of like watching, waiting, like looking at a car crash, you can't look away kind of thing.
Yeah, waiting for it to come to blows.
And like midway through, I'm dominant. Like my character is dominating the argument because he's just so aggressive about it. And I completely caught James like unaware when I threw this at him. So he was kind of like fumbling with words and like having some troubles. And in the middle of that scene, I drop out of character. I put my fist on my head, which is a representation for out of character in that game. I'm like, buddy, James, are we good? Are you okay? Do I need to ease back? And he's like, no, thank you. Like, we're good. This is intense, but I'm all in. I'm like, cool. I gave him an out of character quick hug, and then we went right back into it, and I was calling him a fuckwit in game.
Oh my gosh.
But a lot of that is a true example of this whole idea of like, you have to be able to trust and rely on your friends. And that okay check-in symbol is just so healthy. And anyone who wants to argue with me about that ruining their scene, by all means, I am super down for people to discuss this with me. I don't agree with it, but I'm super down to discuss it because I will defend it.
Yeah, I think it ultimately comes down to like just viewing the other people as human beings, not just characters.
Exactly.
And respecting their humanity.
Now, so I was mentioning about the opt-out, bringing back around to Ryan's point. I was talking about the opt-out. It almost reminds me of, like, there are some scenes, and by scenes I don't mean scene as in like a role play scene. I mean scenes as in circles of like people and things, like the rock scene, the goth scene, that type of stuff. There are some scenes that actually, when it comes to certain degrees of role play, they actually have kind of something called a safe word. I really support kind of the healthy aspect around that. If you've got a relationship going with a friend, you can basically kind of hit that little button of like, hey, we're going to put a pause on it. And I think that's very, very healthy. Moving on from that, I actually see a lot of a pattern with couples often playing lovers in-game. Be careful if you guys attempt to do that. Again, talk about boundaries. In fact, triple your boundaries with your partner, because the last thing you guys want to have is uncommunicated resentment regarding that kind of stuff. Double, and also additionally, like if you have a partner who is at game with you and you're not in a relationship, but you've got a romantic relationship with someone else, double and triple check in on your partner and give your partner that ability to opt out of your romantic relationship as well.
I have something to say in regards to couples that are out of character also playing in character couples.
Sure.
It gets freaking messy.
It can.
It does. Like, I have been in the past a storyteller where the in-character couple and out-of-character couple, the out-of-character couple broke up. You know, these people that were blood-bound and spiritually combined suddenly hate each other, which in the beginning doesn't sound that bad. It's like you could let them fight it out. The worst part, the sucky part for being a storyteller is that then sometimes you have to make a decision which group you have to keep. Because that couple begins talking to other players. And then those players have to make a decision who's in the right out of character. And if you don't make the right decision as a storyteller, you lose half of your player base. This has happened in a game that I story told. And I gotta tell you, if possible, do not do the in-character and out-of-character couples. Because it is a storyteller should not have to be a counselor for individuals that will basically wreck a game because that couple broke up.
Yep.
You know, as a parallel to that, and I super agree, like, if you guys are going to do something like that, definitely be careful, because as we said, it's a blessing and curse. It's absolutely a double-sided sword, so communicate properly. And if you guys break up, like, try to keep it civil. Like, if you're going to both go to the same game, don't make it so you hate each other. How about you just don't care about each other and you stay away from each other? Like, healthy breakups versus non-healthy breakups. So something that I've observed is actually couples in real life intentionally playing characters that don't necessarily get along. Again, you should be handling the same set of rules.
But I've seen that happen
Yeah.
much more successfully.
I agree.
And much more professionally. Of couples that are out of character couples being in character rivals or in character enemies or any sort of thing like that, because there is that base of the negative aspects of the role play. I think you have a better understanding that is just role play, and that there's a relationship there outside of it.
It was very, very dramatic. This is a little bit of a shout out to the fantasy game that I play in, which is Twin Mask. Andrew and Corey, the same Corey that I mentioned was my character's mother. They're in a relationship, and they have played wonderful villains of each other. Corey was kind of a kidnapped, countess, kind of governess, and he was playing this vampire count, and he was being nasty, he was being violent, but not obviously too violent kind of thing. But they were playing it up, they were role-playing it. Corey herself is a stunt woman, or has done theater stunt work, and therefore Andrew at one point in time pretends to smack her and then throws her, and she goes rolling like a freaking wheel on the floor, and everyone's like, whoa, because they're not sure if it's real or not. And she's fine, he's fine, but they're doing these really intense, impressive cinematic scenes because the number one reason there is the thing that I keep repeating, which is trust. Trust, communication, and responsibility.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There's a lot of trust there. There's a lot of just connection there, and having that trust between people can lead to excellent role play, excellent scenes, and just amazing stories.
But we at Life Action Roleplay are not relationship counselors, so
No.
yeah.
Yeah. I want to again mention that a lot of our input for today's podcast is based off of our own personal experience. We're not relationship counselors, but we're not perfect
No.
at all.
And we are not experts on this. We're just talking from our own experiences.
Yes, but any insight that might be able to help you, the listener, with being able to do the best that you can and get involved with a romantic role play. Anything that will help you would be wonderful. And I kind of want to allude to a previous podcast that we had with Angela Bassett when she was our guest, and she had mentioned that she understands that that parts of love, part of experiencing bleed is to be able to experience love and sometimes heartbreak. And that's something that she chooses because she wants to experience all of it. And
with her on that one.
And that's actually a lot of people want to be able to do that. So even with consent, not every romantic relationship is perfect, and sometimes you have to roleplay an end. Remember that sometimes the heartbreak of a character, or even in real life, it just leaves you open to something else that's supposed to come into your life. Poisal, what are your social medias?
My social media, I am on Facebook, facebook.com/Poisal, Poisal, and Twitter at @apoisal, and Instagram, Smart Pencil Designs.
Sin?
Instagram, Cynthia__Marie, and Twitter, Sindancer. Yay.
This is Kai. My Instagram is the same as my Twitter, which is YoKaiProps, YoKaiProps. Drop me a line, send me a message, tweet me, Twitter me, Twitter bait me, whatever. I don't know.
Did you say Twitter bait you?
I have no idea.
Whoa!
Whatever the kids are doing
Slide
these
into
days.
them DMs.
What?
You don't know what that term is?
Yeah.
No, I know. Never mind.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
getting
if you want to,
pervy.
if you want to discuss this further, you can hit me up on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, or on the Life Action Roleplay Hype group on Facebook, and we can continue this conversation there.
Yes, Ryan, what's your social medias?
My social media is Ryan Omega on Facebook and on Twitter. No, actually, and on Instagram. On Twitter, it's Ryan OMGA. And in some places, like on Twitch, you might see the handle Life Action Roleplay, and that's also me. And you will see that on whenever I'm on Maze Arcana.
Nice.
Yeah. James, your social medias.
I first want to say that this is an awesome session, for real. I'm totally into it. So you can check out ancientarchivesapparel.com. I'm also on the Facebook, Ancient Archives Apparel, Instagram. I started doing a Snapchat too, so it's kind of like behind the scenes kind of stuff, like all the funny, goofy stuff, all the bad jokes and all the the stuff the parents shouldn't see.
Oh dear.
Oh dear, and all the weird microphones and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
like the microphone.
This microphone, we're totally going to post
I'm
a
bring
picture.
this every single time.
So, do we have your consent to post a picture of you with this microphone?
Absolutely.
Oh God,
Of course.
consent is important.
Cool.
True statement.
As a heads up, everyone, we've got a lot of listeners from all over the place. If you guys feel like reaching out to us, find our Instagrams, find our Twitters, send us a message, either a tweet or a direct message or something like that. Reach out because we love to talk to people.
Yes.
We've had quite a few people asking for certain questions to be asked and suggestions. We love that. Keep it coming, please. You guys are awesome. And if you find the time, it would mean a lot to us if you can 5-star us and write a review maybe on iTunes or Podbean or both if you're feeling super awesome, as it keeps us doing what we're doing and it keeps people noticing us. Thank you.
Before we end this session, we know that LARP is a community of people, several communities, and I wanted to acknowledge the passing of someone who was very large in One World by Night, who had played in the beginning. At the time of this recording, at 2 p.m., Brian has just lost his battle with kidney failure. And my heart and condolences go out to his family, his friends. I know many of them are very vocal right now. I had the opportunity to roleplay with him a few times, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone take care of each other. I know we were talking earlier about relationships and consent, and part of having a great relationship and a wonderful one with the community is making sure that we take care of each other. It's very important.
Agreed.
With that, we are signing off and talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.